Gather round, children, gather close, for I have a tale that has danced through the ages like a leaf blown on the wind. It comes from the old times, the time when animals spoke like people and wisdom was as precious as gold. Are you ready? Then listen well. Once upon a time, in a small, lively village by the edge of a great forest, there lived a tortoise. Now, this was no ordinary tortoise. He was slow, yes, as slow as a dripping pot of honey, but he was also clever, cleverer than most. His name was Olumide, which meant the one who brings joy in the language of the village. But truth be told, Olumide was tired of being called clever. He wanted to be the wisest of all. For you see, in this world of ours, wisdom was something you could gather, collect, and keep. People say the gods placed wisdom in rivers, in the mountains, in the stories of elders, and sometimes, in objects. And one day, as fortune would have it, Olumide the tortoise had the most amazing thing. Did you hear? The parrot squawked, perched high in a silk cotton tree. The gods have placed all the wisdom of the world into a single pot. Whoever owns that pot will know all things, the ways of the birds, the whispers of the trees, the secrets of the sky, and even the hearts of men. Olumide's little eyes lit up. Aha, he whispered to himself. If I have that pot, I will be the wisest creature alive. Now, the pot of wisdom, as it was told, lay at the heart of the forest of secrets. A dangerous place. No one dared go too far in, for the forest had a way of tricking you, turning paths into circles, shadows into monsters, then silence into roars. But Olumide was determined. The very next day, as the first rays of sunlight poured through the trees, Olumide set off on his journey. Slowly but surely, he crawled into the forest of secrets. Now, if you have ever seen a tortoise walk, you know this, their footsteps are steady, and they are not in a hurry. But even though Olumide moved slowly, he was sharp. He watched for trickery in the trees, he listened to the whispers of the wind, and he spoke kindly to the animals of the forest. On the third day of his journey, after much crawling and climbing, Olumide finally found it. There, hidden in a hollow beneath the oldest tree in the forest, was the pot of wisdom. It was beautiful, smooth as river stone, painted with symbols that glowed faintly like fireflies in the dark. Olumide's heart leapt in his shell. Finally, he cried, rubbing his hands together. I shall take this home, and I will become the wisest of all creatures. Kings will seek my advice. Birds will sing my praises. But just as he was about to pick up the pot, a thought crossed his mind. If this pot contains all the wisdom of the world, how can I make sure no one else steals it? If everyone has access to wisdom, then I will not be special. Olumide thought and thought. Finally, he came up with a plan. I know what I'll do, he said aloud. I will climb the tallest iroko tree in the village and hide the pot up there where no one can reach it. Now, friends, you must understand something. Tortoises are many things, but good climbers they are not. Their legs are short and their shells are heavy. But Olumide was determined. He tied the pot of wisdom with vines, slung it over his back, and began to climb the iroko tree, inch by inch. He grunted. He strained. He slipped. He sweated. And oh, how the villagers began to gather below the tree. They saw Olumide clambering slowly upward, the pot of wisdom tied to his back, and they called to him. Olumide. What are you doing? But Olumide did not answer. He gritted his teeth and kept climbing, mumbling to himself, I must hide the wisdom where no one can find it. Now, down below, Olumide's son, a little tortoise named Ode, watched with big, curious eyes. He scratched his head, puzzled by what his father was doing. Then he called out. Father, why don't you tie the pot to your chest instead of your back? That way you can see where you're going and climb faster. For a moment, there was silence. A long silence. Then Olumide stopped climbing, his eyes wide with shock. What? He muttered. Say that again. Put the pot in front of you and not behind you. Ade repeated. Olumide's mouth dropped open. How? How could a child think of something I didn't? I have the pot of wisdom. I should know everything. At that moment Olumide realized the truth: no matter how wise you are, there will always be someone who can teach you something new. Even a child. Defeated and humbled, Olumide climbed back down the tree. He untied the pot and placed it gently on the ground. The villagers gathered around, and Olumide said, "My friends, wisdom is not meant to be hidden. It is not meant to be kept away in a tree or a shell. Wisdom belongs to everyone, to the young, to the old, to the strong and the small. For even with this pot, I could not see what my own son could." The villagers cheered, and from that day on, the pot of wisdom was placed in the center of the village for all to share. People would sit by it, telling stories, sharing ideas, and learning from one another. And Olumide? Well, he became wise indeed, not because he owned the pot, but because he learned the greatest lesson of all. True wisdom grows when it is shared. And so, my children, the tale is done. Carry it in your hearts, and remember, no matter how wise you are, you can always learn from someone else. Even a child.